He would say, "I have family everywhere. People are waiting for me." He astonished his teachers by reciting the Bhagavad Gita at a tender age of 4. With his education in Vedic literature and physics and his deep and profound knowledge of the spiritual world, he became one of the most prominent sages of the modern world. All through his life, he has been reviving ancient knowledge and creating tools and techniques that have benefited millions across the globe in living a deeper and a more joyous life. In 1981, the art of living was established by Gurudev Sri Ravi Shankar. Nurtured by his care and contribution, the art of living has rapidly grown across 156 countries, reaching over 450 million people.
More people are searching harder for inner peace these days. Would you agree?
Correct.
One of Gurudev's most unique offerings to the world is the Sudarshan Kriya, a powerful breathing technique that facilitates physical, mental, emotional, and social well-being. He has designed 57 exclusive courses that empower individuals and cater to the needs of a wide spectrum of institutions in the society. Back then, Gurudev started the Art of Living service projects by taking responsibility of reviving a sinking school which had no funds. Today, his intention has manifested in over 702 free schools, which provides education and food to more than 80,000 children in rural and tribal parts of India. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the Art of Living Foundation pioneered the I Stand With Humanity initiative, providing more than 80 million meals to the daily wage earners in over 170 cities across India. The service initiative during the pandemic included the distribution of 6,000 tons of food to 5 million families. It helped set up 7 COVID care hospitals and provided with over 200,000 PPE kits. Trauma relief programs were also conducted for more than 1 million migrant laborers and COVID warriors to bring mental relief. To combat the fear, stress, and anxiety during such times, Gurudev launched the World Meditates campaign and also personally conducted online guided meditations twice daily, touching the lives of millions by bringing solace and keeping the hope alive. From childhood, Gurudev had immense faith in the principle of non-violence. With escalating violence and conflict in the world, Gurudev has brought peace in situations where war seemed like the only solution. Thousands of militants and Naxalites laid down their weapons and chose meditation in the northeast and other parts of India. His efforts include bringing an end to a 52-year-old fierce conflict between the FARC and the Colombian government.
I couldn't get the link yesterday.
Abrazar pronto el principio gandiano de la no violencia. Coincidimos con el maestro Shankar.
Gurudev has visited Iraq several times and addressed peace conferences to bring respite to the nation and its citizens. He has hosted a series of trust-enhancing interventions in Jammu and Kashmir, providing all the stakeholders to voice their opinions in an effort to restore peace in the valley.
I was named Muhammad, but after becoming a militant, I was called Khalid. We had been taught to operate guns, arms, and train other youths. But now, after doing the Art of Living course and meeting Sri Sri, we realized we had chosen the wrong path. We now want to spread love and non-violence in Kashmir.
Gurudev's programs have impacted people involved in armed conflicts across the world.
Today, in this wonderful occasion of tolerance, blessed by our Master of Love.
Gurudev strongly believes that behind every culprit, there is a victim crying for help. The Art of Living prison program is helping to rehabilitate the prisoners. It has reached out to over 800,000 prisoners globally and has brought immense transformation in their lives.
I used to actually look forward to fights. But now since doing this course, I'm a total different person. I can now walk away from a fight.
I don't think any human being is totally bad. If he's bad, it's only his understanding, his behavior, his actions. But there is a good side to him. I only see that.
The Art of Living's Welcome Home Troops project has transformed lives and brought veterans out of aggression and depression. 94% of these veterans who were suffering from the unseen wounds of war reported peace of mind and reduced stress and anxiety levels. The Art of Living has also been working towards the betterment of the environment. 40 plus rivers and thousands of water bodies in India have been revived. Conducted more than 100,000 cleanliness drives. Planted over 81 million trees in 36 countries. More than 2.2 million farmers have been trained to adopt natural farming till date. Gurudev found the Shri Shri Rural Development Program Trust to empower rural India. Volunteers have developed thousands of model villages across India, providing solar energy to over 90,000 individuals under Light a Home project. Gurudev's vast global network of volunteers is well known for mobilizing trauma and disaster relief for the affected populations around the world. In a world torn apart by religious, social, national and cultural divides, Gurudev's vision is to see the whole world as one family. Gurudev inspired Guinness World Record events like the World Culture Festival. The festival brought together over 3.75 million people from 155 countries with spectacular performances on a breathtaking 7-acre stage equivalent to 6 football fields by 36,602 dancers and musicians from around the globe, celebrating the diversity of all faiths and cultures. The Art of Living has hosted historic events leading to multiple Guinness World Records.
If you can have a mind of a scientist and a spiritual force of His Holiness Sri Sri Ravi Shankar Ji gives, then we have a beautiful world and happy world and prosperous world.
And organizing a meeting no politician on earth could ever dream of.
The Art of Living Foundation. For 25 years it worked on programs promoting peace, combating violence and drug addiction, empowering our youth. It has an incredible following that cuts through all religions, cultures, and backgrounds. A very, very difficult thing to do in today's world.
Gurudev has been conferred with numerous awards around the globe, including the highest civilian award of Colombia, Mongolia, and Paraguay, the Padma Vibhushan, one of India's highest civilian award, and 21 honorary doctorates globally. His vision for the world is to see a smile on every face and create a stress-free and violence-free society.
The voice of peace, the voice of truth should be heard loud and clear.
On this occasion of World Suicide Prevention Day, I, Rajiv Nambiar, on behalf of the Art of Living, would like to extend a warm welcome to each one of you. I want to welcome Dr. Sudhir Kandelwal and Professor Ronnie Newman, our moderators for this evening. Dr. Sudhir Kandelwal is a senior consultant psychiatrist at the prestigious Holy Family Hospital, New Delhi, India. He has previously served as professor and head of Department of Psychiatry and Chief National Drug Dependence Treatment Center at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, AIIMS, New Delhi, India. He has served as chairperson of the governing board for the Global Network for Mental and Neurological Health Research and International Consortium for Mental Health Policy and Services, both international organizations funded by the World Bank, WHO, and governments of UK and Australia. Welcome, sir. Our co-moderator this evening is Professor Ronnie Newman, an award-winning Harvard University trained pioneering researcher in the field of mind-body medicine, whose work spans for over 3 decades. She is currently the Director of Research and Health Promotion for the Art of Living in North America and a faculty of Nova Southeastern University's Lifelong Learning Institute in Florida, USA. Welcome, ma'am. Without further ado, let me hand the proceedings to Dr. Sudhir Kandelwal. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Rajiv ji. Pranam Gurudev. I feel extremely fortunate to be part of this panel that is being blessed by you this evening. We all are beneficiary of your thoughts and wisdom. Gurudev, the World Suicide Prevention Day is observed on the 10th of September every year and is organized by the International Association for Suicide Prevention in collaboration with the World Health Organization to raise awareness among people that suicides can be prevented. Gurudev, the coronavirus pandemic has created an unprecedented global health challenge. There is a fear that by the time we are through with this pandemic, we shall have a second pandemic of mental health crisis in our midst. And this may start sooner than later. Doctors are already seeing a large number of persons at clinics and hospitals seeking help for their mental health problems like anxiety, depression, acute stress disorders, and post-traumatic stress disorders. Most distressing part of this pandemic has been to witness a spate of suicides since its beginning in March this year. Young people are more likely to attempt or commit suicide as they remain most vulnerable to suffer from stress, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, in short called PTSD, and these are the risk factors of suicide. Suicide data from India show that while annual suicide rates have stabilized in recent years, the proportion of young people in total number of suicide has been on rise. So the most productive years of life are lost due to a cause that should have been prevented. Suicide remains a complex biopsychosocial problem. Besides extinguishing a young life, it shatters the family and adversely impacts the society and a nation too by its adverse consequences on health and socio-economic indices. All these panelists will now discuss various issues and challenges related to pandemic, youth, suicide, and art of living practices. May I now call upon Professor Ronnie Newman to introduce the other panelists. Unmute yourself.
Ah.
Yeah.
Am I unmuted now? Yes, you can hear me. Thank you so much. It is my honor to be here with these esteemed panelists. And I also would like to give special gratitude to Sri Ravi Shankar for the pioneering work he and his organization are doing to eradicate suicide globally. So I'd like to start with introducing our panelists in the order that they will be speaking. Our first panelist is Dr. Sanjita Mahadan, who is an anesthesiologist at Guy's and St. Thomas Hospital in London, one of the largest teaching hospitals there. She is importantly a trustee of the United Kingdom's national charity for prevention of young suicide called Papyrus. And she has offered us to share with you that this is especially close to her heart since she lost her beloved son to suicide 4 years ago. And her work now in preventing young suicide extends across 3 continents, India, USA, and Australia. And she also raises awareness of the unique biology of adolescent minds and the challenges it creates, helping people develop skills for suicide prevention. Welcome, Dr. Sangeeta. Our second panelist will be Dr. Rakesh Chadha, who is a professor and chair of the Department of Psychiatry and Chief National Drug Dependence Treatment Center at India's premier medical science research institute, the All India Institute of Medical Sciences. And he is also the Secretary General of the World Association for Social Psychiatry. And he will be speaking to us on rising suicide in students and the need to build resilience. Welcome, Dr. Rakesh. We are glad you made the time to be with us. Our third panelist is Dr. Laurie Hassell, who has a Master's of Social Work and is Director for the Crisis and Short-Term Interventions at the Canadian Mental Health Association in Ontario, Canada. She's worked for over 20 years in mental health in both hospital and community settings in clinical and leadership roles. And she's also part-time faculty in the School of Social Work at King's University College. And she will be sharing with us some innovative programs that her organization has created to make crisis support available to our youth in a way that is unprecedented. And it's something that we really look forward to hearing. Our fourth panelist is Dr. Aksha Vasudev, an associate professor of psychiatry and neurosciences at Western University in Ontario, Canada. He's both a clinician and a researcher, and his laboratory, which he heads, investigates the neurobiological basis of the success for non-pharmacological interventions, meaning things such as meditative techniques in the treatment of mental disorder across the age span. And he will be sharing with us the other end of the spectrum where suicides are dramatically increasing is in older adults. And he has been doing some award-winning research recognized globally on the use of non-pharmacological treatments in the prevention of risk factors for suicide. So a warm welcome to you, Dr. Aksha. And our next panelist, not last or least, is Dr. Ramanan Lakshmi Narayan, who is the founder and director of the Center for Disease Dynamics, Economics, and Policy in Washington, D.C. and New Delhi, and a senior research scholar at Princeton University. And if that didn't keep him busy enough, he's also an affiliate professor at universities in Scotland and South Africa, and a thought leader in global health. He's founder and chair of the Health Cubed, which works to improve access to healthcare and diagnostics worldwide. And he will be addressing how the COVID-related stigma affects people and the progression of the pandemic. Welcome to all of our panelists. And I turn it back over to my co-moderator now to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Newman. Gurudev, with your kind permission, I now request Dr. Sanjita Mahadan to share her personal experience and her research on challenges that the adolescent mind faces and its unique neurobiology. Dr. Mahadan, please.
So it's only after my beautiful son, Sagar, suffered with a serious mental illness and ended his life a few years ago, I learned that suicide was the largest cause of death in young people in many, many countries across the world. And it was so invisible and not talked about because a lot of the suffering of mental illness is invisible. And there is a certain amount of shame associated with talking about mental difficulties. It's almost as though somebody's character is flawed because mental illness presents itself through behavior. I also learned that no one is immune. Anyone can suffer mental difficulties at any time, and it should not be associated with any shame, just like when somebody has diabetes or cancer, we don't shame them. Adolescence starts at puberty, and finishes in the mid-20s almost. And the brain has a very unique structure and function during those years, which is not fully recognized as a society or as even as a medical profession, because we think of people as adults or children. But adolescence, which is 15 years long, is the time when the brain soaks up everything. That's why they call the formative years. It's very plastic, it learns quickly. The brain chemistry is designed in such a way that youngsters take high-risk decisions with poor judgment so as to break free from the dependence on their families and find peer groups and friends through trial and error. It is a time of big change in their bodies and minds, and hence big loss of childhood, changing expectations, change in the way they look at the world and the way the world looks at them. It can also be a very confusing time. Sadly, it's also the time, as Dr. Kandelwal said, when most mental illnesses and addictions show up. To parents, uncles, aunts, friends of the young people who might be suffering or who they care about, I would say that please don't judge their behavior. Try and understand it. Try and look behind why they behave the way they do. Develop an ability to listen to understand, not to advise, not to fix, not to say something back, sometimes just to understand. Try and stay emotionally engaged with them, because human connection, as we know, is a very basic human need. And tell them that you believe in them and that you always stand by them, so they feel less alone. To all of us who make up our society, I would say that open your hearts and minds and see that there is no such thing as a perfect life, a perfect family, or a perfect relationship. Perfection is a concept. So be kind and reach out to people around you who might be experiencing difficulties. Your time, your ability to give someone hope are the biggest gifts that you can give anyone. And because our minds come in and they judge things, we need to work more with our hearts. As Guruji says, the longest journey is from the head to the heart. Open your hearts, listen non-judgmentally. And because most of the mental suffering is invisible, try and see beyond the words and actions. To the policymakers, I would say that please follow the WHO guidelines, the first of which is keep proper data. We don't even have proper data right now in India as to how many lives are lost by suicide. But one of the numbers that comes up is 28 students per day die by suicide in India. It makes me so sad. This is our future. We are losing our future. We need to step up our youth services in collaboration with the young people, ask them what they need, and design services in such a way. The medical profession has to up their game and make mental illnesses and mental health as important, if not more, than physical health. But right now, most of the medical syllabus is about physical illnesses. Last but not the least, to the young people who may be feeling alone with their thoughts, I would say that whatever it is, like Guruji says, it will pass. Sit with it. Try not to isolate yourself. Find ways to express yourself, be it through words, songs, dancing, singing, painting, whatever it takes. Express yourself. Ask for help if you need to. Be kind to yourself. It's not your fault that you feel the way you do. Open up to the people you trust. And just as you would appreciate if a friend asked you for help, you ask for help. And last of all, I would say that you are loved more than you know. And you're not alone. There are people out there to help you. Thank you.
Dr. Mahajan, will you like to have a question for Gurudev?
Yes, please. Thank you. So my question is, Guruji, how can we create a society that has empathy for people living with mental difficulties and with their families and not stigmatize them?
Yes, Dr. Sangeeta, you have very well said. We need to assure our young generation, tell them they are not alone. There is enough human values, humanness in the society. Everybody is there for them. So this assurance, not just for young people, in fact, even for housewives, during this pandemic, we need to give this message across everybody. You know, every day I get so many such calls. Right this morning, one businessman, he called, his business is so bad and he's getting thoughts to commit suicide. I told him, come on, wake up. Don't never ever think about that. These are economics up and downs, they come and go. So this type of advice is one thing. Second would be, as you rightly said, there is stigma. People don't even tell others that they have depression or there is an issue with their mental health. These people don't disclose it. As you correctly said, like nobody is shy to say, oh, look, I have diabetes. They should say that, look, I am not feeling well, I have some depression, I want to come out of it. This sort of socially people should, when they start sharing, it helps. And another thing is, even if others don't tell you, you can look at their face, you can make it out. So I often say, when you walk around, you see a sad face, don't just pass by. Just stop by and just talk to them. Hey, what's the matter? Can I help you? You have some issues. This socially connecting with people, talking to them is very essential. When we do this, I think we will be able to open up many people's hearts and minds. For a few years back in 2014, we started what is called a happiness survey. So our volunteers went door to door, spoke to people, and just had some few questions. Are you happy? If not happy, what is the issue that is bothering you? What are the things that is affecting you? So when someone asks this question, people feel such a big relief. One lady said that, for the first time somebody asked, are you happy? Do you need anything? So I feel very emotional and I feel there is someone to care for me. This sense of social security is not what the government gives. It's the society that should give a sense of social security to people. Yeah.
Thank you.
Gurudevji. Gurudevji, that's why we have named this panel discussion as the nurturing the gift of life. May I now call upon Professor Rakesh Chadda to comment on rising suicide in students in India and the need to build resilience. Professor Chadda, please.
Namaskar, Gurudev. And I will start with the theme of the World Suicide Prevention Day, which is working together to prevent suicide. So working together, say you are not alone. A person who has got ideas to commit suicide or who is going through mental health issues, this message is for the person that you are not alone. We are with you. Society is with you. All over the world, nearly 1 million people lose their life by suicide every year. And suicide is a leading cause of death amongst the youth. Youth, which is the formative years of the life, which is the most productive. And youth are also going through so many changes actually, because there are developmental changes. They are looking, trying to build on their career. It's a period of personality growth. So they're going through so many changes there are changes occurring in the body, in the psyche. And so the youth has to adjust to so many things. And the world is also changing. So there are so many stimuli. So this all leads to stress. Now, another thing about this thing is about the suicide is that most suicides have a mental health problems in the background. And most mental health problems have onset in the early part of the life. That's a period of adolescence or early adulthood period, say 15 to 25 or 10 to 25. That's a period in which the most mental health problems have onset. And often these problems, they remain undetected. So one thing is that early detection of the mental health issues, mental health problems, uh, there is a role of the family, role of the peers, role of the society, which can help in identification of these issues. Now, how can we cope with the stress? That's the main issue about which I would like to say a few words. That's the resilience or the strength or the psychological strength. Resilience is and in fact, in the society, we or the parents or in the society does not teach the child that about the resilience or the inner strengths or say how to face stress. They would be encouraging. Often in India, this is a very common thing that child from the early school years, or now it's even at the age of 2 or 3 years, child is forced to study and say start learning lessons, and they are forced to send to the schools at the age of 3 or 4. And this cycle continues. At one time, there used to be summer vacations where that was a period of play, and that period of play has gone. So that resilience would come from all these factors. So how to cope with the stress, how to cope with the adversity, this is never talked about in the society, neither talked about by the parents nor by the teachers. Everyone will be stressing on the achievement. And because of that, the child or the youth feels more and more stressed. Now, how can we build resilience? There are multiple things. We can follow a biopsychosocial approach. The biological would be on physical fitness. On say physical fitness would come with a regular kind of exercise, regular physical exercise, following a regular schedule. Means often these days it's like we just few days ago there records. We have got the update on the National Crimes Bureau from India that India is losing nearly 10,000 students by suicide. And students are not following a daily kind of routine. Often they would be awake till midnight, till 2 or 3 a.m., accessing the Facebook, accessing WhatsApp, or so many other virtual medias, which have become so easily accessible, and a lot of misinformation comes on that. So we have to encourage the child, the youth, to follow a regular routine. Then there are the psychological aspects. Follow a role model. Often we are not able to get good role models in the society. And the inner strength, you have ability, you have a lot of things, lot of strengths, lot of abilities, lot of things to look after your, give to the society, to take care of the parents, take care of the family. So there's so many things which you can give as you grow up. So these are the things. So that inner strength, that emphasis on the psychological aspects, that would also give strength to the child, to the youth, and he or she would be diverted from those negative thoughts if and when he or she is getting. Then is the social support, the society. Now, social support comes from the family. The first is the family, who has been the closest person to the any growing child or growing youth. Then is the peer group, your batchmates in school or college, or then the neighborhood, society, your teachers. So these are all, they can provide the kind of support, and they are all these groups, they can also would be able to strengthen your resilience to face any adversity, any stress, as well as they would be able to identify any aberrations, any stresses with the child or the youth is facing, so that they can offer solution, they can guide, they can help the person to resolve these issues, and as well as they can help in getting a help from a professional, mental health professional, who could be a counselor, who could be a psychologist or psychiatrist. So these are the things which can help in preventing suicide amongst the youth. Thank you.
Professor Chedda, do you have a question also?
Yeah. my question is related to the same issues which I have discussed in the why the youth are diverting or say are not able to follow a regular routine, and what we can do to help the youth in following a regular routine.
Yes. Yes, Dr. Rakesh Chedda. What I have seen is, what helps is when you rise their prana level. When do people feel low is the chi or prana, life energy, when it is down, that is when they get depressed first and then they get suicidal. But when the prana level is raised up, as you said, exercise does it to some extent. But exercise also brings them tiredness, so they fall asleep after exercise. And exercise sometimes is laborious, sometimes boring, and youth, those who are into exercise don't even get depressed or think this way. The other side of the story is when people feel lazy and they don't feel like doing anything, that lethargy, one can come out of it by doing yoga. Yoga and meditation definitely makes a difference to them. Other than yoga and meditation, music also plays a very good role, important role in rising the prana level. I would say prana is what is called chi or prana, life force in oneself. When the life force is high, then these thoughts do not occur in one person. Now, what is this sensation that is associated with happiness? If you look at it, it's a sense of expansion. When someone gives us compliment, there is something in us that expands, or you feel you have a sense of expansion, feeling of expansion. The contrary to that, when an insult is given to you, you have a feeling of shrinking. In the yogic sciences, it is said, this something in you which expands and which contracts must be known, and this is your own consciousness, your mind. So what can make the mind expand? Number one, music. Spending time with a joyful, happy group or children who is younger to you. When elder people get connected to younger children, they feel uplifted. They don't feel this sense of low prana, low energy. Third is music. Fourth would be meditation. Music and dance, meditation, all these can raise the prana. Now, this also has some connection to the vagus nerve activity in the body. I'm sure Ronnie Newman would talk more about vagus nerve. But vagus nerve, what we call it the Madhya Nadi, central Nadi in the yoga, we say when the attention is put on the central Nadi or on the chakras in the body, you find much more energetic and feel self-empowered. That's why I would say through yoga and meditation, people can get over this feeling of low energy or, disinterest and not wanting to live longer. Yeah.
Thank you, Guruji. May I now call upon Dr. Laurie Hassell to share her work on youth-friendly crisis support. Dr. Hassell, please. Please unmute yourself first.
Hello, yes. Thank you very much for this opportunity to participate in this panel. It's a pleasure. So I come from Canada, from a city called London, so the other London, and it's of about 500,000 people. So a smaller to mid city. And our community, similar to many other communities across the world, has been noticing in the last number of years, increasing numbers of people struggling with mental health and addiction issues. And as a community, we've been really concerned and worried about that. One of the things that we were hearing from people with lived experience is the difficulty accessing services sometimes. So it was kind of confusing to know where to go, and then maybe there were wait lists or you needed referrals. So as a group, as a community, a number of partners got together and we planned this service to help meet these needs and to reduce barriers. And that was our crisis center that we launched in 2016. This is a low barrier service. It's 24/7. You don't need an appointment. If people are feeling in distress, they're feeling like they need help, they can just come walk into our doors. We also have a crisis line if people aren't able to get there or feel uncomfortable walking in. So that's another way that people can access. And we have a mobile team that will also go out to see people. So we have these different ways of providing support to people in a way that meets their needs. This is a free service as well. So one of the things that we learned soon after we launched the Crisis Center was a bit of a surprise for us. And that was the number of youth that were coming forward. So about 34% of the people that come through our doors are between the ages of 16 and 24. We also, although our service is really targeted to people 16 and older, we also get younger folks coming. So we get kids, we've had them as young as 8 coming with their families. And that's because it's hard to know sometimes where to go. And because we publicize this as a warm and welcoming space, people were coming. So this has been tremendously helpful, the feedback for youth, because we're able to support them in the moment, validate them, and connect them to services that would be helpful for them. They also know that they can come back anytime they want. So when we saw this happening, this surge of youth coming, we thought we really need to be proactive and reach out to our partners. We had been concerned at the number of suicides that we were seeing in our community, particularly among young people on campus and young people in high schools. So we reached out to those partners on campus. We have a university and a college in town, and also with the high schools, and we formed a working group. And one of the things that we did with the support of a community foundation is launch pilot satellite walk-in clinics. So we have crisis satellite clinics on campuses during exam time and during orientation period, those times of high stress for students. And they can come in the evening, they can just walk in. Again, they don't need an appointment, and they're able to get support and connection to services. And those crisis support satellites have been tremendously well attended. A lot of students have reached out. So then we asked youth what would they like, and they said that they would like opportunities to meet with others that were maybe going through similar experiences. So we developed a new group, which we called Highway to Hope. And that is a group for young people that are struggling with suicidal ideation. And it's co-facilitated by a clinician, as well as a trained peer support worker. So somebody with lived experience themselves that is also a young person. And that was very, very well received. And our research and the feedback from participants said that it would really help them with their mental health symptoms and help to reduce their suicidality. So we were really pleased with that, and we're continuing with that group. We've also started a mindfulness ambassadors program. So again, a mindfulness group for youth that is also co-facilitated by a clinician as well as a trained peer support worker. And that has been a tremendously helpful intervention as well. So I think one of the things that we've really learned is to listen to youth and to listen to what their needs are. And instead of trying to fit them into our box in terms of how we feel services should be, create services that meet their needs and make it easier for them to reach out and make it okay for them to reach out so they don't feel stigma. My last comment is kind of one of the other really nice things that we've seen with our crisis center and some of our services is that we support folks, we support young people, and then often 2-3 months down the line, maybe 6 months down the line, we see those young people coming back and they're bringing their friends. So they're friends that are now struggling with maybe some mental health challenges. And to us, that really warms our heart, because we know now that there are many kind of ambassadors, young people out in our community that are looking out for each other and supporting each other. So thank you for this opportunity to share a little bit about our experiences.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hassell. And would you like to have a question also?
Yes, please. So my question is, with so many competing needs, how can we encourage our governments to recognize and support mental health in our communities?
Well, these questions may give rise to many ideas. I think we should implement all the ideas. One such thing we did with in Canada, in Alberta, with the Aboriginals. Then, our Aboriginals, when they feel depressed, they drink, and usually they get addicted to substances or alcohol. Then that, the cycle goes, and when they get, either they become violent or they become suicidal. So they, in those community, we gave them a short training. I think it was in Alberta, if I remember correctly, in the Aboriginal villages, for the people of the First Nation group, which the government also did support, and it showed tremendous results. I think we need to introduce, as you said, like mindfulness, meditation, yoga, and these disciplines in schools and colleges, where we found that that about 87% people feel better, they are getting over anxiety, depression. So more such work can happen. We recently we have this research paper which is out in from Harvard and also Yale University, where they experimented on our sky meditation techniques and found it very useful for youth. So there are a number of things that we can keep encouraging. I think it's like dental hygiene. Mental hygiene need to be taught from very young age. The children are taught how to brush their teeth. Similarly, parents will have to teach them how not to, get tensed, or if they are tensed, how to get rid of it. Tools and techniques must be taught to them to uplift their spirit. I feel that this is something that the um, world over people need it. Yeah, need that sort of education. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Now, may I call upon Dr. Aksha Vasudev to share his data from Integrated Psychiatric Lab in London, Ontario. Professor Vasudev, please.
Pranam, and thank you for this opportunity. I would like to thank the panelists for giving me the opportunity to speak here and to be in the auspicious blessings of Gurudev face to face. I can't imagine I'm here today. It's been a journey to be part of a lab which started as a geriatric mood disorders lab. As of recently, we relabeled ourselves to the integrative psychiatry lab. Just because, even though I'm trained as a geriatric psychopharmacologist, I see so much of need for complementary therapies. Our lab has now moved on to specializing in various interventions. Some of them are from the Art of Living Foundations, including Sahaj Samadhi meditation and Sudarshan Kriya Yoga, which we have been applying across the age span with mental disorders. Recent intervention, which with Laurie Hassell, we had done with called the YES program, the Youth Empowerment Seminar in the buildings of Canadian Mental Health Association for kids ages between 16 and 25 who were struggling with homelessness as well as addiction issues. And we have had stupendous results. We struggled immensely to get people recruited into our study initially, but when they were in, they were hooked in, line and sinker. But my journey didn't start from here. That's one of the recent studies that we completed. My journey started around 8 years ago when I just had come here from England, and I saw a 95-year-old woman sitting next to me in my clinic saying that she's hugely depressed. She's a 95-year-old, so she's more than a great grandma. She had lots of generations that she had been through. She had struggled with depression most of her life. She felt completely lonely and isolated, that most of her family had moved away now and her physical health had declined. Yet I just planted the seed. would you like to try meditation? I said to her, because I had just done the meditation course of Sahaj Samadhi myself. And she said, yeah, okay, I'll go ahead. And she did. And I was amazed. Within 4 weeks of her doing the course, she had a smile on her face, a smile which got etched into my memory that, wow, if I, as a person, as a clinician, as a psychiatrist, can find improvement, I'm finding a person with severe recurrent depression and she's finding improvement, this is worth investigating. And that led to a plethora of studies which have led to an improvement, I hope, across the age span in a small little city of London, Canada, which I like to say the better London for my colleagues in London, UK, because we are very close-knit here. We, as a program, are very much investigated, are want to be involved in everything that's happening in the community. So got a lot of outreach programs. And that's what makes a difference. A few comments I would like to give during the COVID-19 pandemic. You know, as a geriatric psychiatrist, I see people coming in and they have been under extreme distress. The crisis line, which Laurie mentioned, has been an immense help for people to just pick up the phone and talk to another person. A peer support line of individuals who've gone through depression, that's been excellent. But depression has catapulted up. Anxiety and stress levels have gone up immensely. We tried online interventions, but most of our senior folks can't even get on the internet. We are in a developed country, yet because of generation gaps, because of lack of being able to feel comfortable with technology, we have struggled. So we are trying some new adaptive techniques for that. But what I also picked up was resilience has actually gone up. And that's what a CMHA local survey also pointed out. This has brought families together. We are feeling closely knit. These bubbles that we have made are actually very effective in controlling our stress and anxiety. So I think this pandemic has been a beautiful mixed bag. So those are my findings. And if I may, Sureshji, if I might, Sudhirji, if I can jump the gun, I would like to ask Guruji one question which has been bugging my mind for a while. I have tried so hard to bring in these techniques for research and for clinical purposes. One thing which I miss, which Gurudev has shared in very recently, between June 1st and 15th, and Guruji knows what I'm talking about, about the pure power of devotion. Yet these techniques do not go towards devotion. My personal experience suggests without devotion, no meditation technique works. Yet people find benefit, but not the depth of the intervention which is really there. Would Guruji like to enlighten us further, please?
Yeah. See, love is already there in everybody. That love is the very core of everyone's existence. So when you meditate, it automatically gets kindled. Now, what you need is a little bit commitment to follow through for some period of time. This is where people falter. When many people come and tell me, oh, I meditated, it's good. But then afterwards I drop, I don't feel like continuing. This is just like, when a gardener, when he finds there are plenty of fruits in the tree, he forgets to water the roots. So he keeps enjoying the fruit. But suddenly after some time, he feels, oh, there are no more fruits and things are becoming dry. Then it just strikes to them, no, I had to water the root again. So people come back again to it. I would say that, the feeling love or devotion or sense of connectedness, these are all innate in human nature. They may get just covered by, their day-to-day activity or busy mindset, but somewhere, they do connect to that aspect of their life. Yeah.
May I now call upon Dr. Ramanan Lakshmi Narayan to discuss COVID-related stigma and challenges and how this affects people and progression of the pandemic. Dr. Lakshmi Narayan, please. Unmute yourself, please.
Guruji, it's so lovely to see you on screen. If there is one, good side effect of COVID, if there's anything at all, was that at least we got to see you every day, twice a day for quite some time. And I just felt that, we got reconnected in a way that, we didn't get to do these meditations, but having you there every day was such a source of support, not just for us here at home, but for many people who watched this and got drawn to the meditation as a result of what happened in those 3 months when you were on every day. So I would request you to find some time to do that, more often when you can. As you know, my expertise is not in mental health or in suicides. It's really in the infectious diseases and COVID itself. So most of my time I've been spending on tracking the epidemic in terms of helping the governments with state governments with messaging, with understanding where the epidemic is going on and so forth. But certainly in the background, this idea of depression and anxiety and fear of contagion is there not just in the general population, but it's also there in healthcare professionals. And there are multiple cases of COVID suicides. I think the excellent panel here has talked about this, and it's in every country, rich or poor. It's everywhere. It has now been documented very well in the scientific papers. There's a very good example, which is in the New York Times. This 49-year-old head of the emergency department in a New York City hospital, very talented, so good. And then she committed suicide because she couldn't bear to see the suffering that she had to deal with every day while taking care of patients. There have been some people who have killed themselves because of alcohol withdrawal. Thinking that they had COVID, but they didn't have COVID. They mistakenly thought that they had COVID and they died. In fact, in the very early days of the epidemic here in Delhi itself, a poor man jumped out of the top floor of Safdarjung Hospital because he thought he had COVID, and again, he was actually negative when his test results came out. So I think there's been a huge secondary consequence of COVID, which now everyone has talked about, which is a mental health consequence. And the sad thing is that it is going to last much longer than the pandemic itself. The pandemic will come to an end, but this wave will continue for quite some time. And this is something which concerns me, because when we have tried to communicate the seriousness of COVID, because you have to get people to take it seriously in order to do physical or social distancing, there was always a balance. The balance was how do you take precautions about COVID, but not be fearful of COVID? And I wonder if we've achieved the right balance here. And this has always been a challenge, because we have to really tell people, look, this is a serious pandemic. Otherwise, people don't wear masks or distance themselves. The second issue is about distancing itself. And, this is really the biggest pandemic that most of us are living through. And here we always emphasized a physical distancing, although the messaging always went across as social distancing. And social distancing seems to have resulted in many instances in social isolation. So again, we have many more months of the pandemic left, and this has been something which is a challenge. And how could we have done it really differently? The third thing is that many of the suicides are not going to just be related to mental health issues. They're also, as you mentioned, Guruji, in the beginning, these are economic suicides, and they do happen. Every time there's a recession, in the 2008 financial crisis, there were more than 10,000 suicides in the European Union, Canada, and the US than would have been expected compared to the baseline. So these economic suicides are going to keep increasing across the world, and it's really important that we try to figure out how to not lose these people for something that may only be temporary. So the suggestions would be to look at traditional and social media campaigns to promote mental health and reduce distress. The second thing is on vaccines. I think vaccines are seen as everyone as something that's going to arrive very quickly and will save all of us. The reality is it may not. It may take a little more time. It takes a lot of time to distribute a vaccine for 6 or 7 billion people on the planet. We have never done this before. So I think we have to hold out hope But at the same time, we have to make sure that people understand that there is a longer journey that we have to deal with this virus, that it's not going to go away anytime soon. So with your permission, I would love to know, particularly because what you have always advocated is that, the prana, the meditation is really what helps. How can we mainstream what the benefits of meditation? This is still too small a group that's gaining the benefits. Can we prevent many of those deaths through mainstreaming meditation? How can we get the government to do this? If people are out there banging pots and pans, they can sit and meditate for 20 minutes at least once a week. And I think it will bring tremendous benefits that way. How can we incorporate this into a program that is not seen as, that's a solution only for some people, but really an effective and a scalable solution that is there not just for India, but also globally. I think yoga has now gone global, but how can meditation and this form of reducing anxiety during COVID go global?
I think Dr. Ramanan, you have already answered your question. The answer is in your question itself. 40 years back when we wanted to take yoga everywhere in the world, yoga was a big taboo. They thought yoga is all for people, for people out there, not for normal people. It was not considered a normal thing, even in India. Even in India, if you say, I want to do yoga, hey, you go to, Prayagraj, Allahabad, or Rishikesh somewhere. That was the mindset. But today, you see people are practicing yoga everywhere. 2 billion people around the world, nearly 1/3 of world's population are practicing yoga. This was not the case 40 years ago. It took 40 years for people to get over that prejudice against yoga. But today, that they have realized the benefit of it. Same with meditation. Now you see meditation and Kriya, they found with the research in both Yale University, Harvard, and in many other places in India also, AICT, in our technical education, engineering college, they have adopted our meditation for inception, for all the first year students. When they are getting enrolled, so they have to do this, in the very inception of the students itself, they are putting it across so that students feel mentally fit and they get the courage, they get the strength, and they're able to handle their anxiety, nervousness, and all that thing that happens in a college campus. So I think just creating more and more awareness, meditation can be thought as an extension of yoga also, number one. Second is, meditation appeared to be little bit more religious or spiritual connotation. So a new word was coined in America as mindfulness, which is just, I would say, which is just a balcony or driveway of meditation, though it is not exactly full meditation, but it is something very much connected with meditation. Meditation brings about mindfulness. So all these small techniques that mindfulness, in the name of mindfulness, that are being taught in meditation classes from a very, very long time. It's nothing new. It's all an ancient technique only. So in this way, meditation, mindfulness is now very prevalent throughout the world. There is not much prejudice or resistance for mindfulness. So also meditation. See, recently we did meditation, as you said, for 2 months. I conducted every day, twice meditation. Millions joined around the world because people need it now. But they find it gives them enormous inner strength and ability to handle tough situations. And we may get many other new ideas also. We must explore all the ideas. to see that our population are physically, mentally strong. You see, a strong mind can carry along a weak body, but not the other way around. A weak mind cannot carry along a strong body. So it is very important for us to focus on mental health and mental hygiene. I would say people need to feel the freshness and focus and feel alive. And that is what Sudarshan Kriya and all this sky meditation, we designed 57 different courses for different sections of society, right from children to prisoners to patients and to corporate heads. They have designed all these programs keeping in mind cultural sensitivity and the age sensitivity, generation requirements, all that. Yeah.
Yes, Guruji, I will also share the same thing what Dr. Lakshmi Narayan said, that though the COVID has come with a lot of adverse consequences, but a great fallout of it has been to witness you on the screen twice a day for last 2-3 months. That has been a major boon to all of us. Thank you, Guruji. Now, I would like to request Professor Ronnie Newman. I think all the panelists are already know her, and she has been doing great work in the field of various art of living foundations technique, and especially Sudarshan Kriya. So may I request you, Ronnie, to share your research on the benefits of art of living practices of yoga, meditation, and particularly Sudarshan Kriya for mental health in general and anxiety and depression in particular. Ronnie.
Absolutely. Thank you. It is my privilege to be here, and thank you, Sri Sri, for this wonderful opportunity. And what I would like to do is just take 1 or 2 minutes to lay a foundation so that our audience understands why these techniques are so powerful and how they directly impact our efforts to prevent suicide and go beyond just preventing suicide to promoting thriving and the full use of the potential of each individual. And what we've heard from our panel, and it's wonderful that I come right after Dr. Lakshmi Narayan, who summarized many of the multiple risk factors for suicide. There are the psychological issues of depression, anxiety, loneliness, inability to handle the overwhelming stress of financial problems, social problems, family problems. And we know from research that suicide is a multifaceted problem, and that targeting multiple risk and protection factors in meaningful ways, such as what Dr. Laurie and Dr. Akshay have shared, increases the odds of preventing suicide. Fortunately, there is yet another factor that we can add to what has been discussed today to substantially increase the odds of successful suicide prevention. You see, the approaches given so far are all psychological and social in nature, right? They are a psychosocial approach. If we add a biological component to it, then what we do is we create a biopsychosocial model, and that is an even more powerful prevention strategy, giving us an even greater probability of success. And here's why. The psychosocial risk factors, including depression, anxiety, etc., all have a biological component to them. They all trigger the body's stress response, producing changes in our brain activity and our body chemistry. And these changes in turn perpetuate to a large degree these risk factors. So if we can calm the stress response, we can directly and automatically reduce these risk factors in individuals who are contemplating suicide. And one of the most effective ways to help people do this is literally right under our nose, literally, by taking advantage of the direct role of respiration, of breathing techniques in calming the stress response. Because you see, The stress response, which many people know as the fight or flight response, is triggered by our sympathetic nervous system. You can remember S for stress. And the sympathetic nervous system functions outside of our control, with just one exception. And that, of course, is the breath, is respiration. You know, we can breathe fast, we can breathe slow. We've seen children even hold their breath. And so breathing practices thus create a powerful window into our sympathetic nervous system to allow us to dramatically and rapidly quiet the stress response. And by doing so, we directly influence the biological basis of the very risk factors we've been discussing across the board. It's not the financial problem, it's the stress response in reaction to the financial problem that causes suicide. So I'd like to spend my last 2 minutes reviewing the published research on a specific standardized breathing practice called Sudarshan Kriya Yoga, or SKY for short, which has been brought to light by Sri Sri Ravi Shankar and taught uniformly by his certified instructors in 150 countries worldwide. So if we look first at one of the major risk factors, depression, we know that a biological approach is efficacious because that's how antidepressants work. And SKY also significantly calms the stress response and has shown a 68 to 80% response rate for depression, and has a unique advantage actually over antidepressant meditation, because the way that antidepressant medications work is by blunting the sympathetic nervous system, blunting the stress response. And while that does reduce the suicidal ideation and the desperation that many people feel, it doesn't increase the well-being aspect of our nervous system, which is called the parasympathetic nervous system, that peaceful, restful part of our nervous system. And what's found with Sudarshan Kriya is that with these specific breathing practices, that not only does it blunt the stress response, the sympathetic nervous system like drugs do, but it increases the well-being response. And one of the indications of that is a well-being hormone called prolactin, which is abnormally low in most depressed patients. And what's been found is that from the very first session, not taking months of treatment, not taking 4 to 6 weeks like antidepressant drugs, which are valuable, and I'm not saying we shouldn't use them. We definitely need to attack this problem from every angle possible. However, through the breath, from the very first session, not only do we begin blunting the stress response, but we begin increasing the well-being response. And that has to do with the vagus nerve that Sri Sri mentioned earlier. Now, in addition, you know, there's a dance partner to depression, which most people in the world, including those with suicidal ideation, experience, and that's anxiety. And about a dozen studies have found.
One second, Ronnie, for interruption. I had to leave for another program now. So wonderful. All the best to all of you. Please continue.
Yes. Blessings. Thank you so much, Sri Sri.
To go for another panel, yeah.
Okay. So what we see with anxiety is a 71 to 98% response rate in 2 weeks. And let's finally look at impulsivity, which deals with the brain. And as Dr. Sanjita teaches people, the brain of adolescents is different than the brain of humans. It's not completely developed. And so they have a heightened and prolonged response to stress. They experience things more intensely. And they also have less impulse control because this part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex that sits behind our forehead, is responsible to a large degree for controlling our impulses. And our impulsive behavior, you may have heard of the lizard brain, you know, the impulsive primordial brain that we have, the reptilian brain. And for adolescents, the prefrontal cortex loses control over the amygdala, over the lizard brain. And so the youth tend to be impulsive. And part of that is the final impulsive act of committing suicide. And what's been found with the SKY breath technique in young people this is research from the UCLA Brain Research Institute, is that the prefrontal cortex becomes more powerful and is not overridden by the amygdala. So our adolescents remain in what we call the wizard brain, the higher functioning, rather than the lizard brain, the impulsivity, which can help to deter in those final moments a decision for suicide. So in conclusion, we've seen that many approaches work, and what works best is approaching suicide prevention from every angle. So I'd like to end by inviting all groups here and all groups listening to this webinar to partner with the Art of Living Foundation and each other to create the most comprehensive strategy possible for preventing suicide and, equally important, helping people to flourish. So thank you very much for sharing this time. I'd like to thank all of the panelists for the wonderful work you're doing, the important work you're doing, and for taking the time to be with us today.
Yes, thank you, Ronnie. Though I think we should be ending the discussion now, but I'm sure that there will be now time for some collaborative work among the panelists. And on behalf of myself and everybody else, I wish to thank all of you. I see Rajiv once again here. Anything, Rajiv, you would like to say? Unfortunately,
thank you everyone for a wonderful evening and enlightening all of us. Dr. Kandelwal, you can just give the closing remarks.
No closing remarks. In fact, we missed Guruji's last pearls of wisdom, so to say, and he would have left us very enriched. But yes, we overshot the time, so that is our loss. But it had been a wonderful opportunity, and during this pandemic, this is the second time that I shared this kind of platform with Gurudev, and all thanks to Art of Living Foundation. And I'm sure that many of you will be now attending the Art of Living, the Gurudev's meditation challenge, which will begin in Indian time, 7:30 p.m. So see you there now. Rajiv ji.
Thank you, Dr. Kandelwal. Thank you, Dr. Aksha Vasudev. Thank you, Dr. Rakesh Chadda. Thank you, Dr. Sangeeta ji. Thank you, Ronnie, Laurie, Ramanan. Thank you to the entire panelists. It was an enlightening evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you.